It takes 3 days to learn diffusion models top down. 6 years before you can learn it bottom up. That's like the perfect analogy there.
The way I think people learn the fastest is by what you would call like a top-down approach, right? You'll probably learn faster if you start with a problem, and then you can read about everything required to start solving the problem, and then you find more problems and you read about those, and then you go down to like the core of the problem, right? So you start with the actual task and you go down. But that's extremely rare way to learn. Like in school, everyone has this mindset, right, of like, okay, we need to start with the foundations. We need to start, like, if you want to work with machine learning, like you can forget about doing any machine learning for the first like 4 years, right? It's like math, and then you have like matrix multiplications, you have linear algebra, and you have all these things that build up, and then you have the simpler ML that's like super outdated. You have like, you know, linear regression, all these things that are still used partly, but it's like, it will take you a very long time until you get to like production grade ML. Why is this? Well, it's extremely hard to scale the top-down approach, because that requires like a teacher always being there for you. It requires you being able to know exactly what piece of thing you need to learn at any point of time. Well, if you do bottom-up, you know, okay, first you always learn this, and then you always learn this. Yep. And it's much easier to scale, but it's extremely inefficient. And now with ChatGPT, all this changes. I see it a bit as like recursive gap filling, if I would like summarize it in one word. It's like you need, like, the skill that's required here is knowing what gaps you have in your knowledge. Like, say you have an AI model or like whatever else you want to learn, and understanding when you don't really understand the part. It's actually pretty hard to do. Like, it's something you need to train up and practice on yourself. Like, wait a second, do I really understand this part? And then, so that's one signal you need. The second signal is when you start asking questions, you need to have a real strong signal for when it clicks. When you're like, there it clicked.
Yeah.
I can just understand like fundamentally why this thing is as it is.
How did you use AI to self-teach yourself math and machine learning to now work at OpenAI?
I did a very similar thing to what I was describing before. So I currently work at Sora, where we're building these video models at OpenAI. And I wanted to learn things like, you know, the basics of image models. So I asked GPT, hey, what are the most fundamental concepts of like video and image models in AI? And they started talking about, okay, we had these things called autoencoders, we have these things called diffusion models. And I was like, yeah, that sounds interesting. I've heard about this everywhere. That's very cool. Now, you know, write all the code for a diffusion model. And it writes all the code, and I have no idea what's going on, right? I'm like, okay, here's a bunch of code, holy shit. And then you try to get it working, you debug it together, you tell it what's wrong, and then you start to build up an intuition of like, okay, this happens here, this happens here, this happens here. And then you continue to just understand in detail what every single line of code does, right? So you're like, okay, what does this part do? What does this part do? So, for example, for diffusion model, for example, you could take a part, for example, called a ResNet, for example. I have these ResNet blocks, and they do a bunch of transformation, and then they also have a residual, which is basically like you let data pass through in a certain way, which makes the model learn more easy, right? And at the start, I have no idea how this is done, right? And you start asking ChatGPT follow-ups, and it will tell you something like what I just told you. But you still have a huge question mark.
Like what is this? Or like,
what does this mean? Like, what do you mean it learns more efficiently? And what do you do then? Well, you follow up, and you're like, well, how does it learn more efficiently because it's doing this? And you're like, oh yeah, the gradients can flow in these X, Y, Z different ways, and in the scenario that you wouldn't do this thing, they would be stopped at XYZ things, right? And you just continue to ask the model constantly until you really understand. And when you understand, you can just tell the model, okay, this is my understanding of this. Is this completely correct? And then you'll also start learning about all these like small tricks you can do, right? Like explain this concept like I'm 12 years old. That one is really good. It will, you know, it will start like super easily.